We fought hard for 6 months, and until the end we battled to get an agreement to get the country back on its feet.
Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras returns home with a conditional agreement for a third financial bailout to keep his country in the Eurozone. Hello, I'm Nathan King in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. Greece's Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras abandoned his promise of ending austerity to reach a potential bailout deal with European leaders in Brussels. The Greek Parliament now has until Wednesday to pass economic reforms, including spending cuts, tax hikes and pension reforms. Greece will also sell off state assets, with the proceeds earmarked for a trust fund supervised by its creditors. In return, Greece could receive $95 billion over the next 3 years to remain in the Eurozone. CCTV's Filio Kontrafouri joins us now from Athens. Filio, thanks so much. A week ago, the Greek people rejected austerity. Now they're due for a whole lot more. What's the feelings on the streets of Athens?
Well, Nathan, there's a mix of feelings, not just in Athens, but across Greece, because despite the relief that many people have felt because Greece did not exit the Eurozone, many people here feel very disappointed and very angry, not only because they expected more solidarity from Europe throughout all this, but more importantly, because they did not expect that such a bad and painful agreement, as they say, would be imposed upon them with so much austerity on the way. I mean, I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's already the first protest against this agreement taking place just a few hours after this agreement was secured. And I can tell you, if this was happening during a different time of the year, there would be a lot more people in the streets. We expect more protests in the coming days, especially on Wednesday, when this agreement will come to Parliament, as well as several strikes from several groups that will be directly affected by this agreement.
Yeah, Filio, you're right with this dichotomy. The pain is going to be considerable out there. There's going to be a lot of people very angry. Do you think Greece will be in a position to introduce all these reforms agreed to and stick to the programme, or are we potentially looking at a Euro exit further down the road?
Well, it will certainly be very tough for Prime Minister Tsipras to push all these reforms as legislation in the Greek Parliament, and it will be even tougher to implement these reforms. And that's something that he himself has admitted this morning as he spoke to reporters in Brussels after this agreement was secured. Now, it's really interesting that a lot of these reforms were supposed to be introduced a while back, and previous governments, that they were pro-bailout governments, failed to do so because some of them involved sensitive issues that nobody wanted to touch, like labor market reforms. Also, there was fierce opposition from the public and various social groups. And now here you have an anti-austerity government that is called to implement these reforms that many MPs within the Syriza ruling party don't even believe in.
What about on the ground there, the status of the banks? They're still closed. Are people getting desperate? Do they want to reject the politics and just get back on with their lives?
Well, what's happening with the banks here is very interesting, because it's like something that's so abnormal. The banks being closed has become such a normal part of everyday life here. I mean, Greeks know that every day those who still have money in the banks, they have to go, they have to stay in line and take out or withdraw the 60 euros that they're entitled to allow. But the situation, Nathan, about the Greek banks is really dramatic, and it's very unlikely that banks will reopen this week, and for that matter, it's unlikely that they will reopen anytime before the European Central Bank decides to raise the ceiling of the emergency funding that it has been supplying to the Greek banking system, at least in order to keep the ATMs running and keep dispensing cash. Now, until these reforms go through the parliament and are become a law, the ECB will not make a decision on whether to supply more cash to the Greek banks. So even if banks were to reopen next week, the situation will not be easy. Most transactions will still be blocked. A very limited number of transactions will be taking place, mostly helping businesses that are exporting their goods. And of course, capital controls will remain in place for a long, long time. To remind you, in Cyprus, it took them 2 years to get rid of those capital controls. It's possible that those 60 euros slowly will go up to 100. And as an analyst was telling me, it will take a minimum of 3 months before we start seeing any sense of normalcy returning to the Greek banking system, Nathan.
Filio Kontrafouri, thank you so much. Thank you from Athens.